Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I'm so excited to have Dan here with me. We got connected on Clubhouse, y'all. I feel like I live in Clubhouse.
I
My
mean, we all do.
husband is like, "What are those real people?" My kids don't understand. Nobody understands. It's like it's a make believe place, but really, it's real people there, and I love being able to connect in this format. But I'm so excited and intrigued. And we were talking for a few minutes before we hit record, and Dan is the father of twins, y'all. So people
Yeah.
think, oh, you've got a lot of kids, but I know twins to me are more challenging because they both require the same thing at the same time. It's
They
like you're doing things double. That's what I would think.
they do. I think that we got lucky in that my twins have very different personalities, and they're fraternal. So, by the way, they don't look alike at all, which makes it
Oh,
really easy. Um, but there's pluses and minuses. For the women, um, it could, instead of going through two pregnancies, you're going through one.
yeah.
Sometimes it could feel like three, though. So there's definitely pluses and minuses, but there's also the storage aspect. Once we're done with something, we're done with it.
Yeah.
So that's a benefit. And trust me when I tell you, my garage turned into basically a cardboard wonderland at a certain point because we'd have so much stuff in there. Half of them were diapers. Speaking of which, if anybody wants a parenting tip on for your baby shower, do a diaper raffle. That saved us so much money. Have you heard?
Mm.
So diaper raffle. So basically, what you would do is anybody that brings a box of diapers gets a ticket, and at the end you raffle off something. So we had like $100 Target gift card, and
Mm-hmm.
it wound up saving us. So keep in mind that I do have twins, but we wound up with something like 1,800 diapers, which was about a 3.5 4 month supply for twins. But if you take that just as an individual child, that could save you a lot of money in the long run. And we got really lucky because it was my kid's aunt that wound up winning the gift card and then giving it back to us. So we hauled out of there. We didn't even let her make her change her mind.
I love that. And I'm gonna let you introduce yourself in a minute, but that happened for us when we had our showers. One, it's like after you have one or two, you're lucky to get a shower, I would think. But
Yeah,
for us, for the most part, a lot of our kids, it was like 3 or 4 months before we would have to buy them. And the tip is don't buy all newborn diapers for people.
yeah,
Of course, you want to have newborns, but get some of the different sizes because these kids grow like weeds and you look up and you can't even fit them anymore.
yeah. And
So,
for twins, you definitely need more newborn because they typically come out
so
smaller.
small. That's
But
true.
like my kids were 5 pounds 7 ounces and 6 pounds one, so it really wasn't that far off. And
Um,
mine were also born 37 weeks to the day, which is
mm,
considered full term for those that are watching. So we got very lucky.
that's a blessing. Now, so introduce yourself, Dan. We're in the conversation. See, that's what was going on behind the scenes. I was like,
Yeah,
we're going to talk the interview and not even record it.
yeah, because and I always forget because like my audience typically knows me, but you may have a different audience.
Hmm.
Hi everyone, my name is Dan Roth. I am a recruiter for Zuna Executive Recruiting. We do a lot of diversity hiring practices. Um, I've I do a lot of talks about neurodiversity, women's empowerment. Um, I was doing a lot of talks on diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm getting my certifications from Veritas in October, but
Hmm.
I'm kind of taking more of a backseat role and just trying to internalize and listen at this point.
Hmm.
People consider me a LinkedIn expert, a personal branding. People call me a lot of things, none of which is good looking, but that's okay. Uh, I'll take that. Um, but I get asked to do a lot. I'm very grateful that I get asked to do a lot of talks, and it's always fun and different. And I think one of the things I love is that I'm not afraid to share anything. So
I,
everything is open door, open book. Bring it
mhm.
on.
I love that. And, you mentioned quite a few hot topics. We've got
Yeah.
LinkedIn, we got recruiting. especially right now with this pandemic or post pandemic, I don't even know where we're at. Some places are closing back up, some are opening. It's just, I don't know. It depends on where you are.
Mhm.
But with that being said, a lot of people are transitioning, redefining themselves or reinventing themselves. So when it comes to recruiting, what are some tips that you can give people in terms of, getting them themselves out there, marketing themselves?
So the number one tip that I always talk to people about is, first of all, realize that you're okay. Um,
Mm,
I think more than anything else, I talk about mental health because it's something that doesn't get talked about enough. And I feel like the more we talk about it, the more people are going to feel comfortable in their own skin. So
mhm,
before you even start thinking about getting yourself out there, make sure that you're in the right mental capacity to do so. Realize that you're going to be okay. You're going to find something, and it's just a matter of time. Um, the next thing that I talk about is finding your voice. There's a lot of buzz terms that are going around, unique value proposition, all this other kind of stuff.
mhm,
I don't want to. It's a pet peeve when people say, "Oh, just be authentic." And I'm not
mhm,
going to get into that because you're going to get me on a rant that's going to last the next hour. But what I do say is everybody has a unique individual voice. We have a unique way of saying things. It's our auditory and thought process fingerprint. And once you're able to identify that, that's going to separate you, not just in your resume, not just in your LinkedIn profile, but as you're talking to employers. There's a culture, there's a theory or a concept that we talk about culture fit versus culture ad. And what that essentially means for the viewers is there's some companies that are going to want to hire others that look and sound exactly like them. And there's going to be the companies that want somebody that's going to add something different. Now,
mhm.
I don't believe in culture fit. I'll be very upfront. I do not
Okay.
believe in fitting as part of the status quo. To me, that there's
Mhm.
nothing unique about that. No intrinsic value that a company's getting out of that. So when I talk about finding your unique voice, I'm talking about the value that you could add to organization that they don't have, and everybody has one of those. So those are my starting tips. I tend to ramble, so I'm going to
I
try.
think that's good. That's a good point. Now, I think, that is great to mention. And, I'm like, I can keep on going. I see the baby in the back. And look, I have all kind of chaos in my background. And it's just like you keep it moving. I feel like I'm Beyonce staying professional on stage.
Welcome to real life. Um,
My
but,
kids are like, "Did you hear that?" I'm like, "I'm working right now. Okay.
yeah,
I'm
it's like
tuning it out."
I don't have a green screen. This isn't Hollywood. My
I love
table is
it.
not going to move. Like
And
I
you're a
got
male. And I mean, you're just doing it with so much grace.
what?
You have some men that are like, they're really stressed out.
No, that. So let me tell you something that a lot of people don't know. And first of all, let me start this off by saying I lost my job as a result of the pandemic. I became a
Mm,
full time father. My wife works full time.
mhm,
I Without this experience, I can't tell you that I would have the understanding and appreciation of stay at home mothers that I do. I believe every male should have an opportunity to do exactly what I've had the opportunity to do. And there's a lot of reasons for it. One is that it just makes sense. Like, a
mhm,
lot of men don't appreciate what women go through. And first of all, that's just wrong. Get that out of your head. Stop being stupid.
mhm.
You can't, but the other is that it's exhausting. It is exhausting. And then the other aspect, like from a recruiter level, I look at it like we talk about transferable skills because I've pivoted 4 times, right, in my career.
Mhm,
And the thing about it is when you are a stay-at-home parent, you are a project manager. Let me
mhm,
put this out there. You are a project manager. You're doing budget analysis, you're doing risk analysis, you're doing time analysis, you're multitasking, you're doing inter interdepartmental communication. You're talking to the school, you're talking to the nanny, you're talking if you have another parent, you're talking to your friends, you're trying to figure stuff out. I don't know if there's a better transferable skill set that you could get than being a parent. But getting back to my original point, you asked me why I'm so comfortable. My mother was a 25-year kindergarten teacher. And every week growing up, I would go in, I would read to her class.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned two things. One is I learned how to be a public speaker, because if you could keep a 5-year-old's attention, you could keep anybody's attention. You learn real quick about inflection, about voice tone, about cadence. And the other thing that I really learned was how to be patient and how kids respond and what they respond to. And I would never take that back. I loved every moment that I got to spend with those kids. It was just, but that's why I'm so comfortable. There was never a fear factor for me.
I love that. And hey, I'm loving what you said about, the stay-home mom and all those things. I mean, that just this is going to be one of my favorite interviews. I'm a plaster this everywhere.
But the thing with it is like, so I really, when we talk about gender roles and gender norms in society, I hate it. Let me tell you something. My wife kept her last name. Don't have an issue whatsoever. It's not my business if she wants to keep her last name. I'm Jewish. My wife's Catholic. I wanted to raise my kids Jewish. Typically, it's on the mother's side, raising the kids Jewish. But I will say the caveat is that we wanted to raise them with knowledge of all religions. It's just that I'm very strong in my faith. Also, I didn't want to raise them too Jewish because bat mitzvahs are expensive, and they ain't getting no bat mitzvahs. Those things are like $30,000. I don't got $60,000 when the cost of 1 year's tuition in most colleges is $150,000. There is no way they are getting a bat mitzvah. They'll be lucky if they get a cake.
So true, though.
So all these gender norms and these gender roles, and the mother has to cook dinner all the time. It's all BS. Now, I will tell you, my wife does cook dinner, but that's mostly because I can't cook. Like I try. And like I'm
That's a good save. I like the way that
Oh, it wasn't a save. I mean, it's the reality. Like I could.
I'm joking.
No, I know. So here's a quick story for you. My mother growing up used to make this taco chicken. So she would take like all the tortillas and the cheese and the salsa and put it all together. And I remember like my second year, my wife and I were dating at the time, and I tried to cook for her, but I didn't know what to do. So I cooked some chicken and I dumped the salsa and put the cheese and nachos on top of it. And she comes home, she's like, "What's this?" And she takes the plate over, she opens up the trash can and goes, "We're ordering dinner." And it was at that point I knew I was in trouble. Like, I thought I was a good cook before that. I learned real quick that was not the case. I am not a good cook. I can smoke. I could smoke meats. I could do that kind of stuff. But the second it comes to following directions, I'm like every other guy out there. I just,
but this is just great. And, this is some good content that you're providing, because, you definitely are one of the few that has this type of mindset. This is just not a cultural norm. So how do you protect that? Because, just think being around other men, for example, and with some of these beliefs, I mean, how do you navigate through that? Because it doesn't seem like it's popular.
It's not, but I don't care. The thing about it is that I've been well aware for a very long time that I feel comfortable in my own skin, and I feel comfortable talking about the things other people don't. And a lot of times I'm the only person in the room let's just use, so my buddy John Graham wrote a book called Plantation Theory. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. So it's about growing up black. He's very strong in his opinion, but a lot of the things are things that, as a white individual, like, we just weren't aware of. Like, I never knew about Black Wall Street. I never knew about a lot of these things. And he did a reading in his room, in a clubhouse room
Mhm.
for plantation theory, and I was the only one there that looked like me. I
Mhm.
don't care. I
Mhm.
just don't care, because for me, it's about, am I standing up for the right things? And as long as I intrinsically know that I'm upholding my morals and ethics and values, it's going to take somebody that looks like me, that sounds like me, to start making a difference. Regardless of whether it's women's empowerment, regardless of whether it's neurodiversity, regardless of whether it's equal rights, these are all things that have taken way, way, way too long to come in the public eye. And this can't go away in a year from now once people have forgotten, God hope that they don't, about George Floyd. These are things that need to continue until real change is made, until there's more than just 5 Black individuals as CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. It's when we stop relying on women for emotional labor in the workplace. It's when there's no longer the 80 cents on the dollar that women are getting paid compared to men.
Mhm.
I have no, these are, when my girls were born, and I'm not a mantra guy, but I go by this.
Mhm.
And what I always say to myself is that there's nothing I do in life that isn't a direct reflection of the example I want to set for my children.
Mhm.
So I know how bad the world is right now.
Mhm.
I know how dark it is. And as a father, it's my responsibility to do everything that I can so that when my girls get to be the age where they start really knowing what's going on, that hopefully it's a little bit better than it was now. And that's why I do what I do.
I love that. And this is a great point because I kind of feel like I've been in the same situation. And it's so funny because a lot of people think, "Oh, you're African American, so you identify with that story." And it wasn't until this George Floyd situation that I realized, the difference in color. Now, I'm not saying that I didn't realize it, but for me, I grew up privileged, I would billet say, because I didn't really feel any different as far as having an education. I thought it opened up doors for me, but it was during this time that I realized sometimes that education may not even have the opportunity to be expressed. I don't know. I was just in this bubble
Yeah.
until I realized that, hey, somebody can just pull you over just because you're skin and you may not get to say anything. So communication is not going to be an equalizer. So by that, it has allowed me to have a platform to speak, but a lot of the things I'm speaking about are not my own stories, but I realize because of who I am, I can get a platform to voice some of their concerns. So for people who are in that situation, such as yourself, you said you were the only one that looked like you. Can you give them some insight on things that they can do? Because some people feel like, well, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable being in a room as the only Caucasian or, speaking up in a certain way. So, what are some things that they can get started with,
So
that can kind of get the, you know what I mean? Kind of help
I
them on
do,
their
but this is where I'll provide more of a cautionary tale.
journey.
So I'm the type of person that likes to act. I'm the type of person that likes to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a number of friends that are very, let's say, very large voices in
Mm-hmm.
certain communities. So I thought, well, I'm white. I need to start doing something about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I started a clubhouse room that went for 4 consecutive weeks in which I talked about DEI.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only white person in the room aside from my co host. What
Mm-hmm.
I realized is we talk about being an intentional ally. I was not being a good ally. And the reason I wasn't is because I wasn't aware enough to know that I was essentially putting people through trauma porn. Because if there's not other people that look like me that are in there, that are open and willing to listen, then what I'm really just inflicting pain on people that I care about. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel, I don't even want to use the term guilty. I was wrong to do that. I should have been listening instead of acting. And the reason I bring this back up to your point is because a lot of times, I think the difference between me and a lot of people is that I'm prepared to listen. I'm prepared. I was ready to take this journey. It, a couple people had asked me, how far are you willing to go?
Mm-hmm.
What are you willing to lose for this battle? And I didn't know at first.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I thought about it, the more I realized what was being meant by that question, because there are going to be times, regardless of whether you're talking about women's empowerment. And I've actually, so in college, I ran, um, I hope this is okay to say.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran a booth at our college campus for rape awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a gentleman, because I was very big. I'm still, violence against anybody is incomprehensible. Violence against women, even more so. And
Mm-hmm.
I was purposely taking a stand. And there was an ex-military guy that came up to me and started yelling at me about how he was abused too, and like he wasn't understanding it wasn't about him, and that it's perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
there's absolutely times where men get abused, but
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't what it was about. And so I understood in that scenario, I was going to be looked down upon. I was going to get yelled at. That was the first time I experienced that. Okay, that's cool. That's not my ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
That is not my ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't prepared to listen, and he wasn't prepared to change. So, linking this back, and again, I go on tangents. Um, if you are ready to listen, and you are ready to change, and you are ready to truly understand, be more aware, educate yourself. Don't, you know, don't go to, you know, don't go to the first. I want to be careful with how I say this.
It's all good. We're keeping it real. Okay.
No, don't go to the first black person you see and start asking questions. It's not up to you to educate me. It's up to
So,
me to educate me. Um, and
love
I
that.
could,
That is good for anything. It doesn't even
yeah,
have to be a race situation. So
no,
I
it
love that.
doesn't.
That's a good takeaway.
But like, I had the opportunity to get my DEI certifications in August. I
Mm-hmm.
purposely chose not to, because when I talk about those rooms I was in, it took me a while to realize what I had done.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm not perfect. Like, I've been called an accomplice by somebody that I truly care about and respect. But when you make these mistakes, it's inexcusable. So now, while I'm talking about it now, I'm reading Cast. I've read Plantation Theory. I have White Fragility as the next book that I'm going to be reading.
Mm-hmm.
I need to take the time to internalize and listen. So when I chose to get my certifications in October, it's because I knew that it was going to give me more of an opportunity to truly look inside myself
Mm-hmm.
and figure out and reprogram. Because let's be real, it's reprogramming that
Mm-hmm.
needs to happen in order to be genuine in in discussions and in awareness.
I
Because,
appreciate you saying that.
yeah,
Yeah, because I think and I love what you said about the first black person. And that's the same thing with black people and white people. It's the same thing. And one of the things that I was conscious of during this whole Black Lives Matter, I tell people because they would be like, they're marching, and I'm thinking I'm a person of action, but I also look at I'm not doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So for me, I see, hey, there's marches a lot of places, and I look at the patterns, right? Now, that's just me. I'm not saying somebody else doesn't do it, but my point is, I realize that it's a bigger problem than just me taking that one step. And my approach, based on how I communicate, is it's better to have conversations. I've had more conversations candidly with Caucasians than I've ever had in my life about the topic. And to me, that's my way of doing it, because it's like it was the elephant in the room and now there is no elephant. It's just, and I don't feel like I want to make somebody responsible for a history that I was, yeah, it affected me, right? But I wasn't living through that. I didn't consciously make that choice, and neither did they. So it's like, why are you making someone um, pay for something that happened that they may not? Maybe they would have taken part in it, maybe not. We don't know. But the
Yeah.
issue is, you just can't make people try to like this whole thing with George Floyd. Now, don't get me wrong, it was terrible. But to make all cops responsible for one person's actions, I think that's another thing that's a problem. Why he has his own badge number. Would we be giving everybody a ticket on the road if they because one person was speeding? I mean, it's just kind of crazy. So I think that's the issue that we need to begin to separate and let people be responsible for their own actions rather than grouping them in a group of people and saying, well, they did this. And I mean, it's just kind of crazy, the unrealistic expectations that you can put on people, because it is generational mindsets. And if it worked for them, you have to think about, this is like totally taking apart somebody's history, for whatever reason. I mean, that it just, you just can't pick and choose what you want to take out. I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts.
You're right.
Hey,
Haley, say hi.
hi.
So I get what you're saying completely, and I guess I have some differing thoughts, and
Okay.
it's not that I disagree with you.
Mhm.
And I'm very careful because I've made the mistake in the past of making comparisons, especially to Jewish history, and they don't go together, and they're not one and the same.
Mhm.
But what I think about is, you're right. Not every cop is the same. However, if I look at the system, if I look at systematic racism,
Mhm.
and I look at what jobs the truly, if you were to be a biased white male, what is the
Mhm.
one position that you could go into that would give you the greatest power over everyone else?
Mhm.
So, do I think it's every cop? Absolutely not. I think cops
Mhm.
get a bad rap. But
Mhm.
if I think about it from the perspective of, if I knew, if I were just a racist and
Mhm.
I wanted to be in a position where I knew I could do the greatest damage, there you go. That's, you know, and it's horrible. But like, when we look at a lot of these cops, regardless of whether it's a southern United States or whatever the case, there's a lot of cops that are on ego trips.
Yeah.
And it's natural to, when you're in a position of power, to kind of feel that power to respect. I think I'm making sense. But you don't ever want to get to the point where you're taking advantage of that.
Mhm.
um I'm making a lot of trouble for this interview.
No, but what I'm saying though, you bring up a point, but when we're looking at the whole picture,
Yeah,
you can cause the same type of impact in schools,
you're right.
in healthcare. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, we have gotten to the point to where we really limit our thinking. And I'm not saying that, I agree with what you're saying, but we're having a conversation.
Yeah, of
This is a
course.
good thing.
Yeah.
This is a good thing, because this might not have happened before George Floyd. So for that, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
And what I want to say is that speaking your truth may not be comfortable for me, because it is some truth that maybe I'm not aware of. And I think this is one thing we should say. So, like, for example, I grew up as a privileged African American. some of the stories that people in the news talk about, that's not my reality. But that's the truth, right? So sometimes because you're Caucasian or I'm African American, they expect us to be spokespeople for some stuff that we never really experienced.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm trying to get to say. And
Oh no,
so
no, I get what you
everybody,
mean.
you know what I mean? So everybody's story is not the same. So I think understanding that, there are different things that go into the thought process and really letting people speak their truth for whatever reason, but not feeling bad about it. I mean, I might have had some family members that were slave traders or whatever, right? Uh, I'm not completely African American. I have a history of a lot of different stuff. So my point is, people are feeling bad about their history that they didn't have anything to do with. And that's the thing I want to get everybody on the same page to say, hey, regardless of how we got here, where do we go from here? Let's
Yeah.
not, some things can't be fixed, but let's work on a new and get to a point to where we can come and respect one another and not take a lot of these things personal because it just happened to be, I had privilege. Some Black people may not like that. But I mean, that was my reality. So that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to say.
And okay, I can't have you sitting on my lap. And my daughter, okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to break the fifth wall. My daughter was sitting on my lap, farting on my leg.
Tell her that was a good transition. She's like, hey, y'all got some energy. I'm trying to get,
I'm sitting there like, I'm feeling like bubbles on my leg. I'm like, this is not comfortable anymore. Like, I don't want to feel that. That is not like, no. So let me tell you a quick story real quick, since we're already on the potty topic.
Okay.
So, because your audience will get a kick out of this. So my buddy Troy Holt runs a room called Navigating the Racial Wealth Gap, and it was on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And he asked me to be a moderator. So for those who don't know what a moderator is, it means one of the main people on stage at Clubhouse. So it was right around my daughter's bath and get ready for bedtime. So because they eat at 5, then they take their bath and then put them in pajamas. So that particular day, their pajamas, we were doing the wash, their pajamas weren't dry. So I take them out of the bath. I put them in their Pampers. By the way, Pampers are way better than the Huggies.
I'm a Huggies fan, but I'm done with diaper spray.
Yeah, I can't stand Huggies. So my daughter, both of my daughters are very smart, but Haley, who you just saw, so I'm about to get really in depth as part of this conversation, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see a diaper go down, and then all of a sudden I see it fly, and it was not empty. And I'm seeing this, and I'm like, I throw my phone down, I run over to Haley, I run and bring her put her on the changing table, get that taken care of. I come back out. Meanwhile, just praying my other daughter doesn't decide to play. And I'm also praying that it is not a messy situation. Right. Thankfully, I guess she had some starch earlier in the day and it was less to clean up. But this is the true life of being a father. Although here's another part. I was so afraid to change diapers when we came home from the hospital, and I'll have to send you a picture because you will not believe me until you see this picture. I had gone, like, I didn't like to clean dog poop, so I went to Home Depot and I got a welder's mask, I got a long sleeve shirt, and I got gloves. So the first time my kids are home and I'm going to change their diapers, my wife says to me, she sees me go and she's like looking for me. She calls me up and I come back in and if you
Oh
remember
my
back to the
goodness.
well, if you remember Back to the Future when he first goes back and he comes in and looks like a spaceman, that was me, and I'm like sitting up here. I am ready for surgery, doctor. And I go and I
You
go.
have got to send that to me. I'm
I
gonna post
will.
that.
I absolutely will. And like my wife just looks at me, she's like,
That is hilarious.
and
I know
that
she
was
was like, "What is he doing?"
well, no, it was like those conversations that are like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Like that
Yeah.
was one of those situations where I'm thinking, if she could have turned back the hands of time and said no on her wedding day, she
Right.
would have right there. Man, we took a quick pivot.
That was good though.
No, it was you need to lighten up the conversation at times, and
Mm-hmm.
I think this is why I do so well in these conversations, because I have the versatility. I Brooklyn. Brooklyn, okay, I
This is some good. Look, I'm telling you, this is going to be one of my interviews I am going to have everywhere, because this is just real life.
this is,
At its best.
It is real life. I'll tell you another kid story since you're having a good time. So I have a Jack Russell Terrier and I have a Golden Retriever.
Okay.
And Haley loves feeding my Jack Russell. So she'll sit up in her high chair, and no matter what she gets, she looks, and you could see her scanning for the dog, and then she'll fling whatever food she's got at the dog. But if she's not flinging there, she aims for their water bowl. So my daughter will play a game of basketball with the water bowl. If it's chicken, if it's strawberry, like dogs can't have strawberry. My dogs have had strawberry water. Please, PETA, leave me alone. I didn't actually leave it that way. Like, I'm very grateful for the children I have. Brooklyn, come on. They're absolutely amazing, but God. Yeah. But this kind of all circles together. This is why I do what I do.
Amen.
I do a women's empowerment series once a month. I'm constantly talking about neurodiversity. It's all to set the right tone for them. Although I do wish they would watch a little bit less CoComelon. CoComelon is the devil child. In fact, I'm pretty sure when CoComelon goes on in 666, the devil comes out because he can't deal with it.
You were something else.
That's what my mother says.
Now, so how many siblings do you have?
One.
Okay.
So I have one sibling, but truly, I'm trying to figure out how dark I want to go. I have one sibling, but I have two cousins that were like brothers to me. One is still around. One was unfortunately murdered.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It was an unfortunate situation a couple years ago, and we still live through it every day. I'm sorry, everybody, that I took that turn.
Wow.
But like when you talk about family, people always think that family is just your immediate family. No, family is you're close to.
Yeah.
And those two cousins who are also brothers were my best friends growing up. And it's very unfortunate. I'm not going to get emotional about it, although normally I would.
Yeah.
It was just, if I go down this rabbit hole, we're going to be talking about the justice system. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff.
Wow.
We need to be talking about.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Dan, this has been great. We're going to have a part 2.
I am down with it. I love this. Like, I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect.
You're a man after my own heart. I mean, hey, you're speaking up for me with the staying at home stuff, so I'm excited.
Well, I mean, like this is the thing. There's some things that are just like I get animated about some of this stuff because there's some stuff that just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And for any man to sit there and expect his wife to make dinner or clean or do the dishes, let me tell you something. I do the laundry, I do the dishes, I clean the bottles, I vacuum the floors, I clean up the toys. I can't cook because, again, I'm a shitty cook. My daughter agrees. Like, seriously, these gender stereotypes that we've been living with for a long time were outdated for a long time. It's about time people wake up and realize that that's not the way things are. Enough for us to have an equitable society, a balanced society, and truly, how can you say that you're a partner to somebody if you're not sharing the load? That's not a partner.
This is great. So we're going to have you come on for part 2. And we can talk about, whatever you want, something different. But
whatever you want.
I appreciate your transparency and I love what you're doing. I'm all about just using your voice to do what's best for you. It's great you can make the world better by being a better version of you. And I think that's what people need to realize. You can't save the world and change everybody, but if you can impact people, they want to be part of the interview.
You're right, but like one thing I want to mention before we go is that we're only a product of the people that are willing to teach us. So whether Brooklyn, whether it's John Graham Jr., whether it's Liz Lebo, whether it's Feature Kane, whether it's Melanie Wexler, Anna Morgan, who's my personal coach, or Luna Martin, who I work for, and is just honestly, she's a hero in so many capacities. There's nothing I do that I do individually in any capacity. So we have to rely on those around us to truly help us understand when we make mistakes and when we need to correct them. And sometimes we don't know the right questions to ask. We need to be reminded. So we're all fallible, and it's that understanding that will allow us to have a better society. So I apologize. I didn't mean to shout too many people out, but I really think it's important.
You're good.
Yeah.
It's all about networking. You can just send them my way. I'd be happy to have them on the podcast.
It's about networking, but it's also about acknowledging that we're not alone. We live in such a me society, and for me, it's not about me.
Right. And you learned that. You know what? Parenting teaches you a lot about collaboration, doesn't it?
Collaboration and poop protection. I'm
looking for that picture. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I am worn out. This has been such a fun conversation. I feel like equal parts worn out and excited.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it because I like when people feel like this is the thing. We've never had a conversation. This just lights me up to have these type of conversations with people that I've never talked to before in real time. I tell people it is so easy to connect with people. Just listen and you can get so much accomplished when you just listen. Yeah. Listen so you can learn. I mean, you just have a connection by listening,
And, this is me 24/7, 365. I don't know any other way to be, and I refuse to be any other way.
Amen.
So,
except, I hope you got rid of that little gear when it comes to changing diapers.
So let me tell you, I probably wore the gloves for at least the first 6 to 8 months. I took them home from the doctor's office, from the hospital, mainly because, okay, I understand parents that you're going to think I'm a wimp, but also understand at least I'm changing diapers.
Yeah.
I don't want poop on my hands.
Yeah.
I don't want poopy hands.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, everybody's different. That's the thing. You don't have to do it the same way as somebody else as long as you do it. So that's what's important. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
appreciate that. Now, so what's the best way for the audience to get a hold of you, to see these pictures and all this other stuff?
so LinkedIn is my primary medium.
Okay.
That is where I really make my home.
Mm-hmm.
And you're more than welcome to message me. All I ask is that you put in a comment about where you saw me, because I get 150 job seekers per day that reach out, and I can't help everyone. So if somebody at least puts a message in, that I know where they saw me from and I know what I can do to help.
Amen.
It's just a matter of, there's only 24 hours in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So do me that favor so that I could do you that favor. And I'm more than happy to help in any capacity that I can.
Mm-hmm.
Just please be understanding that I thought I'd be the person that responded to everybody right away. But when you have like 200 people reaching out to you, it's pretty impossible.
Yeah.
Also, as far as people reaching out, if you're really interested in this conversation, go to plantationtheory.com and buy John's book. Go to Black Culture Academy, Liz Lieba's website. She's got a free course. Do the education that you need to. It's the same thing I'm doing. I'm nowhere close to being complete as far as having understanding or being an ally, but at least I acknowledge that I need to be, and that I'm in it. So use the resources at your disposal. If you don't know anything about neurodiversity, read up. Women's empowerment. One big thing we didn't talk about, the reason I got into women's empowerment, I don't believe in having a victim mentality. What I mean by that is, you don't change the way a victim reacts. You stop the perpetrator so there is no victim.
Amen.
So this all comes down to education. Just something. Here's another trigger statement.
Yeah.
America does really poorly.
Yeah.
We do not tell true American history.
Amen.
You want to talk about John Smith and Pocahontas? First of all, they ain't real people. If they were, he'd be a pedophile because he was 13 at the time.
Yeah. Part 2 is coming, y'all.
Yeah.
Part 2 is coming. I think we'll be, you got to give people stuff in small doses, but I think we did good.
We did. I probably should have left out that last little power push.
Hey, you got to leave them with the cliffhanger. Okay?
You got to leave them with the cliffhanger. This was fun.
It was fun. Okay. So now, what final thoughts? That you did go off on a little bit of tangent.
Yeah, I did.
I'm gonna let you wrap this up in a nice bow for everybody that's watching.
Okay, and in a nice poopy bow.
Okay.
I guess if I could say anything, it's that as a recruiter, as somebody that works in various spaces of advocacy, the biggest thing that we miss is understanding that everybody goes through the same things. We all deal with depression. We all deal with anxiety. I hate the term imposter syndrome because it really is indicative of a larger mental health issue that we just don't address. The more we talk about these things, the more normal that they're going to become, and the less we have to worry about people that may feel at risk because they're going to know that they're not alone. So be open, be loving, care about thy neighbor, and have a great day.
I love that. Well, you guys, we just want to thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was a treat for everybody. We went all kind of places, but that's what people do when they're having conversation and keeping it real. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and we'll make sure that Dan gets to them. He's busy. He's got twins that he's dealing with. Okay. So, but we will get back with you and reach out to him on LinkedIn. If something resonated with you in this interview, share it, because people need to have real conversations. And if you have an issue, something that we triggered, well, then reach out and we'll have a conversation about it. Don't go around talking about some stuff you don't know. That perpetuates a bigger problem. So
I understand. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like, I understand that some people may not like that somebody that looks like me is talking about certain things.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You're not going to
Mhm.
get an argument out of me. I'm going to listen. Like for me right now, it's all about listening.
Yeah.
We're not all going to relate and we're not all going to connect and we're not all going to agree. That's fine as long as we have the respect to acknowledge
Everybody's position. I appreciate that. That's so true. So we thank you again. And again, be mindful of reaching out. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.